Hello everyone, I'm Honor Wiggins. Welcome to Salad Days. First up, Salad Days is a Shakespearean idiomatic term that refers to a period of youthful inexperience, and that's exactly what we're going to be celebrating tonight. Think of this Sunday session as sort of photo album dedicated to cherished memories and what it means to be a young person growing up. Our lovely, lovely performers have prepared pieces about relationships to childhood and things they feel have shaped them along the way. I think social media, among many factors, have led us to detach people from their past. And we're overlooking the unique upbringings and experiences that make us so special. So tonight we're going to be celebrating the journeys of navigating the process of growing up, celebrating its messiness, honouring the complexity of each individual. And performances relate to a specific photograph belonging to the performer, which I will show at the beginning of each piece. But it's going to be a wonderful night and I hope you're excited. First up, we have Catherine Edwards with Big Day.
When you're a kid, everything is big. And one day I had a mission, and that day, big day that day, because that day I had an audition. I went to this big city to stand on this big stage in front of this big desk, and I just kept staring at the big shoes and the big faces. And I blew the competition out of the water. Not for a second did I falter. I was on cloud 9. I felt fantastic. Till one man pointed at me, "Oh, her, that one. Yeah, she's enthusiastic." Ladies and gentlemen, I was devastated, decimated. What I did next, I think any self-respecting 9-year-old would do. And I went crying to my dad. "Oh my God, what happened?" he said. "It's okay, you didn't get it. It's okay," he said. "No," I sobbed. "Well, then what?" he said. "He called me enthusiastic." As I'm sure you can tell, I didn't understand the big scary words said by the big scary man, because I was a small 9-year-old standing on a stage and I heard a big word, so it was hard to gauge if it meant I had done well or not. But after that minor overreaction, I dusted myself off, I went back in and I took whatever else they said on the chin. And then after my mission was completed, my dad took me out to dinner. So overall, despite it all, I felt like a winner. And as I deliberated over syrup or sprinkles, there was white tape being plastered over the windows. The world got pulled back as I was told to get back, to move back. And then there were 2 policemen standing at the door, and I don't remember my heart beating this fast before. And my dad took me in his arms, keeping me hidden from something I didn't understand, as if a monster from a bedtime book had crept out of its dark land. And I stayed in the darkness of not really knowing why we couldn't go home. So the fear kept growing, and I wished I was back with the fear of big basic words, or small fears, or childish tears, or just humiliation ringing in my ears. Anything instead of this. In the end, it turned out to be a false alarm, and everything once again returned to calm. Someone had left some big bag on some big busy street, and the big city went back to bustling with commuters' feet. But it awoke in me a memory of a time when the news had been filled with smoke and a fragment of normality had been torn away, broken. So now I'm bigger, I understand a little more. The world is still big and scary, but not as much as it was before.
It was wonderful, wonderful. You capture what it means to be a child so well. So the photo that you are using as inspiration is this picture of you and your dad standing outside of, that's Les Mis, isn't it? Yeah. Oh my God, what was the inspiration behind this piece?
So I think it was to do with, as a kid, the different fears we have. And with hindsight, you learn the things that you are really scared of. And at the time, that audition was really big to me, and it meant the world. And then on the same day, to have something more terrifying happen, it sort of put in perspective what I was getting so flustered about. But it took a long, long time for me to really understand that. But I remember it as being a very exciting and frightening day.
Yeah. How do you feel as you've grown up now that that kind of fear has changed? Do you still kind of feel the same way when you perform, or yeah, how do you navigate that kind of fear in your life after childhood?
I think as kids, you go into things kind of bulletproof. You don't care about the competition, and you don't care really about where you are. And that kind of, I suppose, that calmness you bring in, you're just focused on the task ahead, like kind of like a mission, is a good way to face something that you're frightened of. But having a dictionary handy would be great as well.
Yeah.
Which I know that.
Yeah, wise words. Thank you so much for performing. Next up, we have Lauren Mcintyre, and this is the photo that she's used, which is called, her piece is called River Home. And yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I was introduced to the idea of living in the moment a few years ago, and I've thought a lot about it since. And to me, what a big part of that is pace. And since becoming a teenager, I feel like my life has really sped up. I think if I was to come up with an analogy, it would be as a kid, it sort of felt like I was on a little rowing boat and I'm going down a stream and I have an oar. And, mostly it's you can only go one way, but sometimes there's a choice and it was either left or right. But it was very simple. And then I've become a teen and it feels like I've sort of been thrown into a stormy sea. It's chaotic and it's everywhere. And there are no clear paths. And so to carry on, from that analogy, I wanted to talk about a time when my life was a bit slower, and that's when I grew up on boats as a child. And I've written a poem called River Home that reflects on some of those experiences and feelings that I felt then in what was for me a slightly slower time. The lap of a wave making subtle collision with what my playmate friends painted in innocent vivity to be our ship, rocking us from left to right, ever so slightly. With this, you brought steady motion to my moving world. Sometimes a hole to miss and plunge into, cat hairs like conker shells, for a claw might have slipped on silk and algae, or perhaps their attention drifted elsewhere. The walk of shame was always met with the gentle rap of towels and stippled laughter. Drops often gathered under wooden shelves, her engine or parts or pipes did work and care, so big tools and tricks and strength would sit comfortably in mum and dad's hands with pride. Chuckled smiles still floated around me. Where to next, I might ask, and you would lead us there, riding through a blur of adventure, that my wide eyes might be hazed with new sun and gaze, bounced off the lap of new sentiment wave. Thank you.
Wow. Amazing. I can't even imagine living on riverboats. It sounds like like a very niche but magical experience. Are there any specific memories that you have growing up on a boat that resonates with you each time that you think about it? Because I think that that's something that a lot of people would have no idea what it's like to be in that position. So yeah, do you have any memories like that?
Yeah, so I remember something you could do, or at least we did in the summer, was that we would jump into the river and we would swim in the river. And it was easy because it was out of your window. And so me and my sister would go in, and it would always take me a little bit of convincing because I was scared of the pikes and the fish. But once I'd seen that she hadn't got eaten, I would go in after. So she was sort of the test subject there. I also remember riding into London, just completely on the river, on the boat, and then spending a day in London and then riding back. And it was really, really magical. And yeah, just lots of little moments that I'm really, really grateful for.
Yeah, oh my God. Growing up and like moving away from a riverboat, you spoke a bit about like taking that time to slow down. Do you find yourself trying to reconnect with that quite often in this kind of age of busy life, especially
Yes,
like in teenagehood?
it's definitely something that I try and reach to sometimes. I think it's definitely a choice that I try and make. I decide that sometimes I want to slow down, and like it's hard, but I do definitely. But then to help me do that, I do think of those times when I was a kid, like, and how I felt, and then that sort of helps me now when I want to just breathe. It's a good memory to look back on when I want to feel those feelings again, but relive it as a teenager, which is possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You spoke wonderfully. Next up, we have Jude Modell with Second Generation from this photograph. So sweet. You look so sweet. I love your jumper so much. Yeah, over to you, Jude.
Thank you. I remember my ears started ringing and I just stopped in my tracks. I was staring at the slide, but I looked around the nursery, picking apart every last detail, now faded. The first lasting shadow of thought in my brain, and I thought to myself, I must never forget this moment. Growing up was more than average for this second generation Zimbabwean child. Not long after he gained consciousness, he moved to the school where he'd live out the rest of his years before teenagehood. His parents worked hard, harder than he knew at the time, but there was only so much he could know of. Their painful long hours, or what he perceived as not showing up to the school events he pleaded them to be at. They're what he perceived as strictness, but he also treasured the joys of them. The comforting hug of his mum after a long day of missing her. He treasured the saltiness of his dad's spaghetti bolognese, the only meal he knew how to cook. He'd be watching regular show while waiting for his aunt to pick him up. How the last day of year 2 felt in the burning hot summer. His innocent, stress-free, childlike mind. He had the freedom of being obsessed with mermaids and pop girl TV, playing with his sister's dolls in the sink for hours and hours when no one was watching, because he knew he didn't want his mum to catch him. But times changed once he walked out his primary school doors, heading into a world just waiting to shape him into the man he'd become, me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. Firstly, you talk about your parents and that kind of relationship that you have to them. After you as you get older, I'm guessing you get to know your parents a bit better and can kind of understand them, because you're growing up and you're getting to know it. Getting to know them. How do you feel as you've grown up? You've gotten to know your parents, and has that kind of changed your perspective on the things they did for you in your childhood?
Well, I feel like as I've grown up, I've kind of been able to see what things were like for them raising me and my sister, after moving to the UK and trying to fit in here, and how difficult it was on their side of things, and how just like each person, I kind of started realizing that like each person in our family, even though we're in the same family, we have a different perspective of things, and we're all gonna experience things differently, if that makes sense. Yeah, despite how close we all are. Yeah.
Perspective is a hard thing to kind of navigate as you grow up from, because everyone's perspective changes completely in yourself, but also you realize how many different people have different perspectives as you grow up. How do you feel looking back as a teen on the perspective that you had when you were younger, and that kind of I guess not innocence, but not knowing as much as you do now? Do you feel like when you look back at the memories, those memories have changed for you, or are you still able to retain that kind of idealism?
Well, despite how much I learn of what things were like, for how things were, how the things that I couldn't see were, I don't think it really changed changes my view when I look back on my childhood. Like I'm always still able to just see things through the innocent lens the innocent way that I used to see things when I was young, if that makes sense. And yeah, that's
Yeah. I guess it's hard when trying to fit in makes your childhood, you're not able to retain the same kind of like innocence and naivety that other kids retain, which is really difficult because you're not really like allowed to be a child for that long until the world makes you understand what your life is gonna look like. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking. You were really wonderful.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Window by Daisy Shaw. From this photograph of her. This one isn't, she said it isn't directly related, but when she looks back on it, she remembers this kind of feeling that she describes in this piece. Over to you, Daisy.
Thank you. This is called Window. The blossom tree blows in the wind outside my window. The pinks blur into greens trapped outside. I'm on the other side of a pane of glass that protects me from the world, from you, from the aches and pains of growing. The blossom blooms, and I am still trapped inside. The sun beats down from the corner of the page as I long to be with the trees and the grass and the green and the flowers that aren't so small anymore, with the man in a red and white pinstripe suit who gave me a 4-leaf clover. I haven't been so lucky since. The blossom tree is bare. The birds don't sing. Shh. In a sea of orange and brown and grey, it is in some ways less beautiful. Shivering, patiently, vacantly waiting to be blossom covered in white, to the soundtrack of twinkling lights and fairies and Mariah Carey. The silver of the snow and the tinsel and the moon reflect in my glasses as I sit waiting. But they will come back around, and I will watch the world go by from the other side of a window. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful words as always. What was your kind of inspiration for writing this piece? What was your inspiration?
So I moved house about a year ago, and in my new room I have this window, which is where I'm sitting, where my desk is, and it's kind of just about, I spend a lot of time sitting at my desk, so I spend a lot of time looking out my window and looking at just how the seasons change and how you kind of don't even realize that a year's gone past and you've looked at all these like beautiful changes in seasons and you're growing up and actually you've kind of witnessed it all from exactly the same place. It fascinates me.
Yeah. Oh my God. The perspective, it's that thing about you're growing up and you don't realize, but your perspective is changing until you look back and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? How do you feel that your perspective on life has changed from being a kid to, obviously there's the idealism, but personally, what do you feel?
I think when you're a kid, everything, I feel like other people have said this in their pieces, but everything seems really easy. And like, you kind of see the world from this like rose tinted view where, nothing can ever go wrong. And, your biggest problem is whether or not you watch The Little Princess in the morning. And then you kind of grow up and stuff can seem really big when it's not, like you forget your homework and you get detention and that's the worst thing in the world ever. And then you start reading the news and you see all of that stuff and that becomes issues that affect you in your future. So I think like everyone, my perspective on life has changed with time and just seeing how the world is changing.
We must talk about your top.
Yes.
Wonderful Wiggles top. I just want to know your thoughts on the Wiggles, really, because they are quite an odd band. I don't know how to feel about them.
This is my actual shirt from when I was 2 years old. It's a bit small. I've lost a bit of motion on my arms. But yeah, I used to love the Wiggles. And so I thought in a piece about childhood, I would put on my old shirt, which is very small, but it reminds me of being happy and young.
Yeah, I love it. I'm wearing a baby's top too. It's got a fire engine on it. Don't know what to say. I'm just kind of going with it. Yeah, thank you so much for performing.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Next up, we have Sophie Ashton with a piece about her brother, who I have here, a collage of photographs of him. Sophie, would you like to introduce your piece?
Yeah, a bit about my piece is it's just a bit of spoken word really, about getting at mental health. Like, I don't think it's really been spoken about. It's been spoken about recently, but back when he was alive, it wasn't really spoken about as much. So I kind of wanted to get the word out there a bit more, so there was more lives being saved. So yeah, that's what my piece is about. I care about mental health. When I was 7 years old, my 19-year-old brother committed suicide. It's something that's never left me. But what could be done about mental health? One thing that is supported by the mental health charities, including Place to Be, is mindfulness, where you're living in the moment, not the past or the future, where you're using all 5 of our senses. A type of meditation that relieves stress. But why do we do this? One reason is because suicide stays behind with the families for years.
Thank you so much. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your brother and who he was? I have a picture here. I just wanted to hold up again because I didn't hold up long enough. But there's his face.
Yeah.
Remember it, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to tell us about your brother?
Well, as you can see on the photos, he was kind of a cheeky chap when he was still alive. When I was younger, he used to take me to the park and stuff like that, with my sister, and even when he had like £2 left out of his pocket money, my mum would like come home all stressed from work, and he would literally spend £2 on a milk tray for my mum, even though it was like £2 left. He could have used that on himself, but he wasn't. So he's very thoughtful. Some crazy stuff he used to get up to. He used to stand on bus stops and fall off them. I think once he broke his arm, but that's my brother for you. He loved parkour. The little, like, I don't know what they're called. They're like those black. Oh, I don't know what they're called. They're like bollard things.
Bollards. Yeah.
He used to jump across those and try. And I've got a video of him doing it. But yeah, he was basically like this sort of funny person, like class clown, but deep down he had this underlying mental health illness that was like undiagnosed. Nobody knew what it was, which unfortunately ended up taking his life.
Thank you for telling us about your brother. This experience is like something that no one should have to have gone through at such a young age. How do you kind of take this experience that you had through your life and learn from it? You talk about caring about mental health and wanting to change the way that the system deals with it. How do you bring that through your life?
Well, as the money I earn as an actor, my biggest dream was to open up like a centre for people who have either got mental illness, but because of his mental illness, he ended up going homeless because he didn't want to live by my mum's rules. So it was either for people with mental health and or homeless people, so where they could go, and I would have called it the Jamie Nolan Centre. So that is like my biggest dream, really. If I earn enough money to open up a centre, I'd enter one up in my hometown and help people out.
We'll look out for it. We have faith in it. I have faith it'll be so good. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing yours and his story today. Thank you. Next up we have Shedding Skin by Emily Megaran. This is the photograph she gave me. She said that I'll let you talk about the photograph. But
okay, yeah. So the poem's basically like made up of just stuff I've scribbled down from my own experience of growing up. It's called Shedding Skin. Lately, I've been restlessly twisting and turning, scraping and grazing, peeling and bleeding, scratching and shaking, fighting and thrashing inside this cocoon, this thing that I'm trapped in, this skin that I'm shedding. They say when I get out, I'll be able to fly, but I can't help grieving what I'm leaving behind, because although I can pretend I've grown up big and strong, there are these flashes of fear where reality slashes and I'm falling, drowning so out of my depth, because some part of me is still a child, wide-eyed, terrified, who just wants to run away and hide under the covers because she's scared of the dark. It's like being born again, going from the womb, that safe, warm, numb, blissfully ignorant state, out into the world of light and dark and every other shade. It's bloody and messy and hurts and you cry, but then why do we continue this cycle of living and not just die? Because it's worth it. Though not without sacrifice, but for every dark night there is a sunrise, and for all the pain of this life, a mysterious beauty is constantly alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clap. Yeah, wow. Could you tell us a little bit about like the inspiration behind your piece, and where this like amazing imagery comes from?
Yeah, thank you. It kind of just came from, because I saw the thing on Instagram that you were doing this thing called like salad days, and the expression just reminded me of like some notes I scribbled down like a few weeks ago in my notebook, and I went back to it, and I'd written about like the intense conflict I felt between like wanting to grow up and wanting to stay a child, and also the pressure that there's this like idea that one day you wake up and suddenly you're grown up and you're big and strong and you've got it together and you can like face the world, which was not how I felt. And a few things that also happened around that time that was making me think about death quite a lot, and I didn't and don't have like an answer for that. And yeah, and I think I struggle like to face that and to be able to go out and face like the world in that way. So it kind of just came from that.
Yeah, there's like, I feel like people don't talk about the loneliness that people feel and the world doesn't really accommodate for. They don't tell you that you're allowed to just want to run back and sit in your cocoon forever, and yeah, you don't ever get that, and you're not allowed that. And when childhood hits, you're expected to be this loud, bubbly person, and teenagehood you're supposed to be exploring and getting to know new things and new journeys, and like when you have that deeply, like you can't approach it the way that everyone wants you to. With these feelings and growing up, do you feel like it's changed, or do you feel like you're getting better at this? I don't want to be like to make you expose all your feelings on the internet, because like no one needs to like be forced to do that, but like in your words, do you feel like that kind of experience with dealing with those feelings has changed as you got older, or does it feel like the same? Yeah, does it feel like the same old thing? I don't know.
I think like as people were constantly like moving and changing all the time, so it's never like static. I think it's I still like get moments where I definitely feel like scared, and I think we all do. And I think for me, what's been helpful is just like being honest about that and writing it down and getting to do things like this and not hiding it as much, because I think in some way we all share that feeling. Yeah, so I guess that's my answer.
I think it's like that thing that you said about doing stuff like this and getting it out in the open in a way that makes it all seem very like like everyone's going through it. And I think because like they want to make their life, especially now, want to make their life seem like it's perfect. Like
I know, yeah, especially with social media and stuff like that, and the way we present ourselves. I think we try and make ourselves seem like strong and like fine and great, and just being honest is so important.
And it's also the thing of social media making mental health seem like it's like romanticizing it and making it seem like it's a really fun thing that everyone feels really lonely. Everyone like, oh yeah, like you know, but it's very difficult, and it's something that you don't grow out of, which is so annoying. You don't grow out of it. You just live with it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So openly and so beautifully. Next up, we have Phoebe Constantine, the wonderful Phoebe Constantine with Rabbit Hole, and I will get your photograph. I've been bad at getting them. But here you are. Ooh. You are at school, and I'll let you talk some context about the piece. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Phoebe Constantine, and I'll be talking, I'm doing a spoken word about what it's like to be a student that is neurodiverse and what that's like in mainstream school. Okay. I am wondrous. I'm thinking, I'm searching, I'm tasting, I'm smelling, I'm seeing, I'm hearing, I'm touching, I'm feeling, I'm growing. But something's not right. In my eyesight, a contrast, a blend, I feel different as I descend in curiosity. I seem to be in the body of a small child. I'm at this school, and at this school I'm talked down to and tiny. At school I'm a neurodiverse fool, a tool in society. At school I'm told I'm not trying hard enough, and it's tough, it's rough, it's a rusty handcuff tying me down this rabbit hole, and it takes a toll down a rabbit hole like I'm Alice in Wonderland. They don't understand. To them I'm just a prop, a music stand, a lifeless material brand. I pause. I squint. I try to smile under the vile, vigorous tug of pressure to measure up. I stand up, but I'm told to sit down. I speak, but there is no sound. I can't communicate, and no one can relate. The dilation of my frustration grows by the second, because if I can't read, I won't succeed. And it's with the heavens that I plead, for I need help. So much help, but not even help. I need the world to slow down. This school is a pool of noise, noisy boys and loud girls. My mind whirls, I can't hear myself think. There's no time to blink, and I'm on the brink where I think I might sink. My brain is stalling, my eyes are bawling, and my soul is sprawling. But my purpose is still calling. Each day, each morning. And it seems to be the most wonderful thing in me is what they do not see. But that's what I need to be. Free to be absurd, free to be seen, free to be heard. And that's what I will be. I know that one day you'll see. And I hope you understand once I'm free.
Beautifully written and beautifully performed as always. You speak about being free, And do you feel like you've achieved that yet, or do you feel like it's like a constant thing that you're working towards? Because
100%. I guess I kind of struggled with that line at the end because I'm trying to write it in the past tense to really capture how I felt and how vulnerable I felt when I wasn't getting help, when really I should have. But yeah, I really do, and I feel like, in a way, this organisation, NYT, has really saved my life. It sounds so dramatic, but it just has. It's given me family, it's given me friends, it's given me a platform, as I'm speaking now, to speak on. So I feel so free, and I feel like I can be neurodivergent, and it's part of who I am. So I feel like I've totally achieved that with no insecurity, and I can do it shamelessly, and it's just great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I agree so much. Yeah, when you talk, I know that you do dancing, a lot of dancing, some wonderful dancing. How do you feel like that has helped you become this kind of free bird? Because it's inspiring to watch. But yeah.
That's a good question. I think even if you don't want to be a dancer, you should still take a dance class. I'm one of those really people like, yeah, just like go for it. But I think as a performer, I think if you go into a movement workshop and you kind of, I don't know, uncomfortable about your body and you feel self-conscious, I think it's pretty freeing to just know your body. And I think that's what being a dancer does. I think it gives you confidence, and it makes you lets you move your body in such wonderful ways. And I hear so many people going, "Oh, I'm not a dancer," and I think if you move and you've got a body, you're a dancer. Grade 1, 2, 3. That it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think it helps me as a performer, but just my confidence as a person. I think dancing's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about school as well, and school is like a massive thing that shapes you as a person. How did you find? I know you talk about being neurodiverse in school and having dyslexia. Right? Yeah, it's dyslexia. And yeah, I don't know how that must have been very frustrating, especially when people are very not understanding, and the pressure of school anyway, and wanting you to get good grades. In your own kind of words, how did you find that?
Really frustrating, and I think it was always frustrating because I always had so much in my head from such a young age. I was always fascinated by words and rhythm, and I had so much up here, but I couldn't put it down. I think that really hit me hard when I was doing my GCSEs and writing about Macbeth, and I just had so much, and I had such an insight, and I put on the paper, it just wasn't flowing because they want you to do it in a and I couldn't do it. So it was so hard. I mean, schools never worked for me. My mum was an absolute saint. Like, she tried to move me around to so many schools, and we tried all types of things, and it just doesn't work for me. But I feel like I've still managed to be successful and to achieve what I wanted to achieve without it. So it's not like struggling at school or not enjoying it. You don't need to enjoy it to be a happy person. You don't. I'm living proof of that.
Very wise words, as always. Thank you so much for performing. Beautiful words. The next up we have The Crumbling Old Wall, Where I Saved the World by Paul Bradley. I have your photograph here of the wall itself. I was told earlier today that it wasn't taken back when it was set, and I'm broken. But it's okay.
We didn't carry around cameras back then, so. So just a bit of context. I'm reading from the very end of the story here. Essentially, it's about how I wrote about a villain, a supervillain called Nerva, in a short story I wrote for my English class when I was about 7. And the villain then started appearing in my dreams and the dreams of my friend Joshua. And so we kind of got together and embarked on this epic game of pretend where we'd meet up at this old wall at the end of our street. and we'd sort of do battle with all these sort of villains and monsters and foes, and it was this sort of giant game of like make-believe that went on for years and kind of encompassed our whole lives. And then it goes on to talk about like the nature of imagination and the immaterial world, and how just because something isn't physical doesn't mean it isn't real. And actually ideas and the imagination impacts our lives far more than the physical world, and in that way can be considered more real, or at least as real. And then it goes on as the game wraps up, and Josh and I go our separate ways and sort of drift apart. And now the story picks up towards the end. Braintree is overrun by monsters, like almost everywhere. Invisible creatures made of suffering who live in our words and sleep in the heads of people who say they don't exist. You can see them all around you if you know how to look. Some are shrouded in the colourful cloaks of advertising. Some stand behind podiums wearing hollowed out human skins, though they can never get the hair right. And others just lay in the creases of a tired old face that's decided life isn't worth it anymore. By the time I was a teenager, they'd claim me too. My head no longer craned up to the sky, but rooted down, caught up with visions of apocalypse and the hell we'd made. Braintree was a sterile land to me, too scared to stand up to the ravenous maul of the supermarkets or the encroaching scab of cheap cul-de-sacs that tore up the land. I closed down, went cold, and convinced myself I never cared in the first place. But while I slept, the child inside became something more, something bright and shimmering, pushing through the depths of the underworld, calling me on. Come to me. Don't deny me. This way. Here's the light. You know where to look. And I followed, stumbling towards the voice, blind and afraid. It took me through therapy, through philosophy, from the depths of confusion to the beginnings of knowledge. It held my hand as I wandered down that cruise ship bound for Asia, pulling me towards someone who could help. I met a Buddhist monk who told me I should meditate more often, and you don't just ignore what a Buddhist monk tells you to do. So I sat with that despair and conditioning, sat for a few minutes every day, teasing it out. Demons never like being looked at. And when one night it leapt from my chest, spewing out like water from half-drowned lungs, I breathed a whooping gasp and the immaterial world came rushing back. The people of that land came in their droves to see me again, and their names were Gaia and Thoth and Hermes and Jesus. They were Superman, the Doctor, Promethea, Frodo. They were nameless, waiting to be born. They were shapeless, needing no form. They were power and beauty and love. They were all and they were none, dancing through the ballroom of my mind. I learned and grew like never before, the inside and out becoming as one, and with this growth came the blooming of hope. Hear this, if nothing else. The monsters aren't here to stay. Inside us are gods, waiting behind the eyes, ready to wage peace on an unsuspecting world. They live through me, through you, through every one of us, and they're growing stronger every day. Cycles break, traditions shake, and soon the cup will overflow with tears to wipe the darkness from every heart, and on that day, oh my friend, we shall dance. If you think I'm mad, I understand. Take these as the ramblings of an idiot and go about your day. I'll see you soon. For those still here, I'm glad you stayed. The gift is yours now. Truth be told, it always was. Go out and make childhood anew. We shall meet once more, you and I, by that crumbling old wall in the corner of Braintree, and wait for the dance to begin. For we are heroes, one and all, and weightless upon time.
Well done. You capture the imagination of kids in oh my god, it's perfect. It's wonderful. I love every second of it. So this wonderful wall, you talk about this magic and immaterialism and things and kind of dreams and that kind of stuff. How do you feel that kind of magic and stuff? How do you keep that up in your life as you approach like daily, mundane kind of tasks? How do you kind of keep that up?
Well, I mean, there's magic in everything. It's everything that we do. It's everything that we are. You know, I mean, when you like read a book or watch a film, I mean, all you're seeing are, you know, squiggly lines on a bit of paper or light projected on a screen with some sounds, and yet you are, you know, you can be brought to tears, you can be made to fall about laughing, you can grow attached, you can change the way you see the world. What is that? That in itself is how I would define magic. It's nothing external. We always, the assumption tends to be, I mean, I remember when I was a child, I would always have this sort of feeling of, well, you know, okay, this, you know, okay, real life, yeah, fine, but when are the dragons coming? When's the spaceships coming? Because it was so obvious to me that they were going to be there eventually. But I think the trick is that we always assume that it's something outside of us, but really just changing the way you see the world, even going down the street to get a pint of milk, can be a fantastically beautiful spiritual experience. Because, you know, there's, if you look, you know, I mean, the fact that we're, you know, I mean, the fact that we're in a house and made of bricks, and the thousands of years of, you know, culture that led to the construction of bricks, and the, you know, the shoes that we wear, and everything that we, you know, and all the thoughts running through your head, it can be a profoundly sort of spiritual experience, from nothing more than just going to the shops.
You're a wise man. Honestly, that's like, I think that's an incredible way to approach day-to-day life, because I know that, like, if you're waiting for magic to come, you're waiting for those dragons to come, and they never do.
No,
but like you think you pick up on something that I feel like a lot of people lose when like this like experiences happen and knock them down. But I think by holding on to that, I think it's something pretty incredible. I mean,
I think if dragons ever did show up in real life,
yeah,
they probably wouldn't be as interesting as the stories we tell about them, because you know, I mean, they'd be animals, they'd just be like mundane things, but in a story they can be symbols of wisdom or primal evil or forces of nature. They can be all these things, whereas, you know, I mean, they'd just be normal animals like any other, and they would just become part of the mundane. But, you know, again, you know, it's just, and I think another thing would be just entertain childish thoughts. Like that's quite a fun, you know, you don't even think about dragons, just consider the fact that you'll never be able to see your own face. That already is enough to make you sort of trip out and have a fantastical thought voyage.
Okay. Thank you. That was, now I'm going to think about that all day, Paul. Thank you for that. You spoke so beautifully, and your stories are incredible. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Our last but not least is Heather Hewitt with Unlearning, and I'll get your photograph. It's incredible. Oh my god, where did I put it? I got it done already. This wonderful photo of you as a little tot. I'll let you explain it, but I think we should just take it in for a second, because
honestly, that photo, that's one of many. There's so many photos where I just look like I mean, my mum now describes it as I just look like I'm off my head, which isn't inaccurate. So my piece is called Unlearning, and I mean, it's quite I think I'll just go straight into it. But unless you wanted to ask anything first, or should we go straight into it first?
Take it away.
Perfect. Okay, cool. As you can see in the picture, when I was younger, while being slightly bonkers, all I wanted to do was have fun, go on adventures and live life to the fullest. It didn't matter what anyone thought, I wanted to do those things, so I just did them. It was simple and it was just instinct. You see, what's funny is I still seek all of those things, and I think we all do, but they don't always feel simple anymore. Sometimes so complex and daunting, it forever remains a dream or an idea. I'm not pointing the blame at anyone or anything except society, the entire world, and every single person in it. No, I'm joking. But what I'm trying to say is that over the years, I have been taught so many things which have slowly but surely suppressed those instincts. Living in a society under never-ending criticism, fear of judgment, we now know everything that can go wrong in what we do, so it can feel like we're entering a battlefield on a daily basis. I know it's easier said than done, but what if we just started to unpile those societal constructs that our instincts have been buried under and be influenced by our kid world, where there wasn't social media constantly suggesting to us what's successful and what isn't, and 1,000 voices telling us what's cool and what's not, and this huge concept of time making us feel in a rush to achieve everything we can. So instead of this being a reminiscent speech about wishing I was a child again, I want this to be a moment where we think, where we can, let's get back to that. Yes, of course, we have responsibilities and our parents aren't going to do our washing forever. But I'm talking about that attitude where we just did what truly made us happy and we didn't care about what anyone thought. This isn't a case of becoming someone new, it's the opposite. Being more true to ourselves. Getting back to that kid in the photo who is off on her next adventure with her portable home, her baby, luggage bigger than her, and some kind of writing in felt tip on her tummy. Not relearning, just unlearning. Let's try and be inspired by our kids' selves instead of envying them. Thank you.
You put it in words like, you sum it up wonderfully, and I think it's an incredible way to end this night of this evening, should I say, of talking about childhood memories, because it is that thing of like, we can talk about our childhood all we want, but till we realize that that's our best connection to how we can open up and let ourselves be better people, let other people be who they want to be. I think, yeah, it's what we're gonna talk about it, and you talk about it beautifully. In your own life, I mean, are there any like stand out or not stand out, but like phases in your life when you felt like you really had to tap back into this kind of like unlearning and this process of unlearning?
I think when it feels like therapy in a way,
no,
in a good way. I'm like, let me think back. No, there's been lots of times, but there was definitely a period, I'd say. I mean, I'm now 25, but there was a period when I was 18, and I was still a teenager, but coming out of that teenage, I'd learned a lot as a teenager, not necessarily good things, just a lot of like, do this, don't do that, that's cool, that's not. So when I was 18, I kind of completely gave up any kind of performing arts. It was out of fear of sort of judgment, people thinking I wasn't good enough, this, that, and the other, for a really long time, for a good like 4 years. So, and then I've grown up a bit, and then you suddenly realise like, it just doesn't matter what people think. At the time it does, so I'm not like undermining it at all, but you know, I've grown out of it basically. But yeah, I'd say late teens, early 20s, it was very much, which isn't even childhood, but I was cared about what people thought a lot more than I do now.
This is the age-old question I feel like everyone asks in interviews. Some like, it's cringeworthy, but it must be asked one time this night. If you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?
I'd be like, Heather, how long have you got? Because I've got a lot to tell you. I would say just do what you want to do, because you're going to end up doing it anyway. Like, as I said, I've gone full circle. So you could have saved yourself a lot of time, Heather, you know. So I'd say if you've got an instinct in you, or like some kind of drive, don't think too much into it. Don't think, oh, but what if it, you know, this, that, and the other, and don't come up with excuses. Just like, keep it simple. Just go for it where you can and when you can.
Yeah, good advice. I think that's the kind of thing of like, suppressing things is never gonna help. Why would you suppress something when it's part of you? And that's what makes everyone so wonderful and unique, and that's like why we're here. That's why we're here tonight. Thank you so much for speaking.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Last up, we're all gonna go around, because we have some extra time. And I asked people before this night to come up with one song from their childhood, like a niche or like a song, and then a niche memory of something that makes you think back to you. My song was Ready or Not by Bridget Mendler, which I know is just like ripping off Lauren Hill, I think, but like it was good. And then Ice Gems, which you have at like all the parties, also like sprinkle sandwiches, any kind of party food. And I think first up we'll go to our first performer, Catherine Edwards, for your two things.
Thank you. So my song for me would probably be Five Colours in Her Hair by McFly, because at the time there was this sort of rivalry in primary school if you were busted on McFly, and I was a very proud McFly fan. And the thing that really stood out for me in my childhood was watching the new Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston. And when the Daleks first came on, because my parents tried to prep me for it, like, it's going to be really scary. And I was like, no, it's not. I'm like 7, I'll be fine. And then the Daleks killed everybody by putting plungers on their faces or electrocuting them. And I completely lost it and was petrified for life, but also a lifelong fan. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, lovely. Next up with Lauren Mcintyre, our second performer.
Thank you. My favourite childhood song was Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, which I always used to, I remember in infant school, we'd have a thing called a morning march where we just basically have boogie in the morning. And which I think I should really start doing again in my life right now. And I remember just getting down, like as a kid, getting down on the floor and just completely going crazy because this song was on. I don't know, really, this song really did something for me. And then I think my niche memory would be this little car set I had. There are a few cars, and I became absolutely obsessed with them. And it was the only thing I played with for a while. And I just remember having such a complicated idea of how, like, each car had a job, and, you know, one was the sister of this one, and then the mum of that one, and then and they were all friends. Like, it was just I just had such an idea of this world that was so small, but then in my head it was so big. So that's my memory.
Thank you. And then go to Jude. Thank you.
Hi. So my favorite childhood song, or one of my favorites, was it was called
I think we might have lost Jude due to other reasons.
and
oh, he's back. Okay.
yeah. Right.
Oh no, go. Yeah, you go.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I always used to be like, oh, play this song. This is my song. And yeah. And my favorite niche memory is multiple childhood TV shows, but like the main ones are H2O, Just Add Water, and another one was The Amazing World of Gumball on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, good ones, good shows. Next is Daisy. We'll spin quite quickly through because here Daisy.
Obsessed with mermaids.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
When I was younger, the first song I ever remember being like properly obsessed with was All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor. So I think that would have to be my song. And then my memory is there was a book called Rainbow Fish, and Rainbow Fish was the first book I ever had. And so I felt like that was, I don't know, quite fitting. But yeah.
Thank you. And then Sophie Ashton.
Hi, yeah. A childhood song of mine was Ruby by the Kaiser Chiefs, because whenever it came on the radio, the only word I'd sing is Ruby, and I wouldn't know the rest of it, so it was just the chorus all the time. And a niche memory of mine was probably the Foxes party rings and the different coloured ones at parties, at children's parties, because I just used to eat them all. So yeah.
Wonderful. Oh yeah. No, you do have to get every single colour.
Yeah.
And then to Emily.
My favourite song was Puff the Magic Dragon. It just takes me right back. Right back. And my niche thing was The Sound of Music, the film, first film I ever remember watching. and I think I still know all the words.
Oh my god, it's such a good film. It's such a good film. Phoebe?
I think Emily speaks for me. I mean, the Sound of Music is everything, right? I think my song, I'm gonna have to change it from The Dress Rehearsed. You're My Sunshine. It was like the best lullaby. My mum would always sing it to me. And then my memory would be when my mum would take me out from after school, and she would have like a strawberry with her, and we just go down by like River Thames and just eat them together. So like foods, come on guys. So yeah, that was amazing.
Beautiful, thank you. And then Paul?
Yeah, so for me, I was raised on old obscure stuff almost exclusively. So the song that I brought is Mars the Bringer of War, because it was the theme tune to the classic 1950s Quatermass serials, which I really liked as a child. And also it was the theme tune, and also it's the theme tune to the first film I ever made with my dad, which I used my action figures to make to make a little story. We worked on it every Saturday. It was called Survival. It was supposed to be called Survival, but neither of us could spell, so actually it was called Survival. And my obscure thing, if I can just nip to the back here, I went up into the loft and I brought down these little my Dalek figures, which I collected obsessively as a child. This is the Saucer Alpha Major Dalek from the classic serial of 1964, The Daleks' Invasion of Earth, because I'm a big nerd. And yeah, I just a lot of memories of like collecting these ones exclusively and recreating all the scenes, and looking forward to finally having the appropriate doctor to battle them with. And yeah, a lot of fun times.
Beautiful, thank you so much. And then lastly, Heather.
My song from my childhood, or well, I was like coming into my teenage years, was a song called Ouch by N-Dubs. It was just the coolest thing at the time. And my niche thing was a Nickelodeon program called Zoe 101. And I wanted to be her and in her world so badly that I painted my whole room the same colour as her dormitory. And I remember we didn't get like the right purple, and we like painted the whole thing, and I was like, oh my god, it's not right, it's not the right shade. So I had to go into my mum. I was painting it with my dad. Went into my mum, I was like, it's not right. And then she had to, because I was too scared to go and tell him because he'd put in all this effort, she said it's not the right shade, and we had to go and buy a new one and do it all again. That's how desperate I was. But yeah, that's my two things.
Oh my god. Your poor dad.
I know. It's, if you chip away at this paint, you can see like purple, and then there's another purple underneath.
Thank you. I just want to say a wonderful, like, that's not a word. Well done to everyone who performed tonight. You all worked so hard on your pieces, and it was beautiful, and you articulated your childhood memories wonderfully. So I think we're gonna have a massive round of applause, a Zoom round of applause. You can put your I think you put your mics on and just clap.